I said here family appearances reflect economic and social forces, and that's really what I'm saying, that as if the economy is booming, the families have more, groups of people have more disposable income. If they don't, if it's not, or if, as in wartime, I know it's a very long time ago for you guys, but my mother got married in this time, in 1940, I think, and her wedding photographs, she doesn't have a frilly dress on. They wore suits because there wasn't the money, there wasn't the sort of the resources to actually make frivolous dresses, and it would have seemed very sort of anti-war effort if you spent the money that you had on, making a gorgeous white dress to wear at your wedding. So it was austerity, this sort of downplaying these sorts of things, because this is reflecting that this group, society and the families within it, had a greater priority than dressing up for a wedding. Their priority was winning the war. And winning the war overrode everything. The war effort, as it was called, overrode and shaped everything, including the way people parented their children. Children in wartime were put into state nurseries while their mothers were encouraged to go and work in factories. And this would have been in peacetime at that point, although working mothers now is a norm, but then it wasn't. In peacetime, for a mother to leave her child somewhere else and not look after it would have been a huge basis for judgment. They may even have taken the child away from her. But once, with the wartime effort, once the priority was we've got to win the war, all the money, everyone's efforts were directed primarily towards that end. And so women were needed to work in factories because the men were fighting the war. So the children were put in nurseries, and there were lots of experts to tell people how much better this was for the children to go into these big nurseries and to stay with the mothers in the home. Because after the war, all these messages changed, and suddenly, so there, I'll put those two pictures beside. These are the times when it was the war effort, people in uniform, austere clothes, everyone cheerful enough, having a good time, but absolutely so almost homogenous. Even the women don't look much different from the men. There's sort of like everything is underpinned by this primary aim to win the war. And so, all sorts of extravagances went out the window. The contrast, less than a decade after the war, couldn't be greater. Now we have a very different sort of sense of what this family looks like. Mothers using all modern, what was then modern equipment, with fridges and cookers, and possibly even has someone to help her in the kitchen. Maybe not, maybe that's a relative. But the child, the father's clearly working. There's pretty curtains on. There's a sense of affluence and contentment there, which was very important ideologically. It was a very important message to give to people, both in Australia and the US, where I think this photograph's been taken, and in the UK. Very important to give people a message that the family, after the war, the family offered the primary sort of location to express yourself, to make efforts to educate yourself, and especially post-war to buy things. Because the family, again, has an economic significance now. It's, and it still does. I was in Harvey Norman on the weekend. It was pouring, it was raining down the coast, and there was basically nothing else to get out of my sodden home and to go in Harvey Norman. It was quite remarkable that people, in the midst of all these floods, people, including me, were in there buying, and I could hear the people talking to each other, the salespeople saying, it's so busy, it always happens like this when there's floods and rain and things, people come in and start buying something. And and these are the families, an example of families operating as almost like an engine for the economy. Their personal circumstances sort of drive them to act in ways, and as I said, I was one of them, to go and we're told that this is an individual act. I thought, oh, it's wet, I'll go shopping, because I don't want to stay in the wet house anymore. But basically what I'm doing, my first port of call wouldn't be to go and sit in the library, but to actually go and shop. And I think families shopping in the 21st century is a hugely important role to play in society, the economic power that families have.